Hello again. This video in this series is to give you a couple of additional warning signs to give you an idea of what any additional warnings might be. And before I talk about them, I've got three that I want to talk about briefly. But before I go into those, I want to give you a link, which will actually be in the description of this video, but I'm going to say it out loud to you here as well and tell you how to get to this. But the link takes you to a relationship assessment. Now, this is on the website for an organization called End Elder Fraud. Not everything they do has to do with older members of our society, but they named their organization End Elder Fraud. And on their website, they have this relationship assessment that you can do. And you can choose to answer all the questions and submit that, or you can just simply look through those questions and consider each of those in the context of the relationship you're experiencing right now. And so their website is endelderfraud.org. And once you're there, at the menu at the top, one of the options is Bulletins and Tips. And if you go to that page and scroll to the bottom, there's a link there that says Relationship Assessment. And that'll take you into where the questions are. Now, there's many questions there that are good things to consider about whether this may be a scam or not a scam. But like I said, I want to talk specifically about three things that you may be encountering to give you an idea of the type of additional things that may be good for you to consider. Okay, so one of them I alluded to in the previous video about limited hours that the person may be able to talk to you. So if those limited hours are happening during the time when you would normally be sleeping, then what that does is it creates a vulnerability in you. So the longer that goes on, you experience this gradual sleep deprivation. And over time, and most of us have experienced this at one time or another, such as if you have ever cared for an infant, then you had some sleep deprivation during that time. And honestly, the same thing happens if you have a little puppy that you're starting to care for, or a kitten. Those also create some sleep deprivation in those first few days, weeks, or months. And so we've all felt that gradual sleep deprivation and how it comes over us. And in addition, a lot of sleep deprivation all at once can create a similar vulnerability, of course. And so if that's happening, then, and for instance, if any conversations about money come up during a time when you're particularly sleepy, then there's another indicator that this could be a scammer. So keeping that in mind and maybe looking back over the time that you have spent with this person, that if that seems to be a factor, that's something to take a closer look at and think about. The second thing is if the scammer has asked you to do something that might be a bit risky or risque. So for instance, something that frequently happens, unfortunately, with romance scams is that the scammer at some point asks you to send a nude photo of yourself to them. And so that happens in couples all the time, between two consenting adults, whatever, right? Do that. But unfortunately, if it is a scammer, they may be intending to use that against you at some later time. And the way that usually looks is if you start to realize, oh, I do think this is a scam, and you're pulling back, or you say, I don't want to do this anymore, or you want your money back, they, mention that photo and say, if you don't keep going along with this, whatever the words are that they use, if you don't keep going along with this, I'm going to put that on the internet as an example. So if the scammer if your partner, because we don't know if this is a scammer yet, right? If this person asks you to do something that feels a little risky in any way, then maybe hold off on that and take a closer look at what that could mean if it is a scammer. And then another warning sign that you could consider for yourself is if this person has a social media profile, and frequently that is the case. And I'm going to use Facebook as an example because that is frequently a great example of how this is used. Lots of Facebook profiles out there that are suspect. But some things to look for in that profile is, one, if it's a recent profile, so it was started sometime relatively recently. That's a judgment call, and consider that for yourself and whether that seems to be pretty recent or not. If there's also only photos of this person, and by the way, if they're exceptionally beautiful or handsome photos, that kind of adds to it being a risky profile. But frequently scammer profiles don't have a lot of things except a series of photos of the person, and it isn't always the person you're talking to. It's usually not the person you're talking to. Those photos are pulled from somewhere else and unfortunately used, and they could also be photos generated by AI, artificial intelligence, as well. But if that's the way the social media profile looks and there isn't a lot of substance other than those things, then maybe consider that a risk factor that maybe it bears a closer look. That's it for now, and on to the next video.